Okay, everybody. In this video I'd like to talk about three protocols that you will commonly see in networks. These are Syslog, Ntp, and Tftp. Now, Syslog is a protocol that is used for recording events that occur on your network devices and allow us to collect that information for later reporting. Ntp is the network time protocol and is used for synchronizing devices to a single time source and thereby ensure that all of our devices within the network have the same time. This is especially important whenever we're trying to synchronize or trying to correlate events that are occurring on the network. It is extremely important that they all be using the same time. Finally, the last protocol, TFTP, or Trivial File Transfer Protocol, is a protocol that we use for transferring files from our network devices such as switches and routers and either updating configuration files or for updating the operating system. So we're going to be going through all three of these protocols, and I'll be showing you how to configure them. We have, as you can see here, a very simple network. I've got a router set up on the left, then a switch in the middle, and a server. We won't necessarily be using the switch except for providing a physical connection, but we will be using the router and server. Now, as you can see in the diagram, the router interface for F00 has an IP address of 192.168.100.1 with a /24 CIDR notation. The server has an address on its interface of 192.168.100.100/24. So the first thing that we'll do is we will go in and do the basic configuration for the router, then our basic configuration for the server, and then get into the specific commands necessary for the protocols that we are reviewing today. Okay, so let's start with configuring our router. So we'll go up to router 1, go from our user mode to our enable mode, and then next go into our global configuration mode, and then we're going to assign the IP address for our interface F00. So int F0/0. We want to set it to an IP address of 192.168.100.1. So IP address 192.168.100.1 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0 because we're using CIDR notation of a /24. So I'm also going to add in a description. Okay, and again, this is used for commenting and allowing us to better understand what interfaces are connecting where. So the description will be connection to switch 2. And then we will do our no shutdown or no shut and bring the interface online. You'll notice up in the diagram here that the interface has gone green, and now the switch is evaluating the connection and should be up shortly. I'm not going to set any of the standard passwords that we normally do. I'm just going to focus on taking a look at these three protocols. So that's it for standard configuration. Let's just add in a host name, and we'll put in router. Let's see, it's router 1, so host name router 1, and you can see our prompt now changes to router 1. So next we'll move on to configuring Syslog and setting it up such that any type of network events that occur on router 1 here will be recorded to our Syslog server. So before we get started with configuring Syslog on our router, let's go over to our server and make sure that all of the services that we are going to be using are configured on it. So we'll open up our server, we'll go to Services, and first we'll check into Syslog. Click on Syslog here on the left, and then we'll make sure that Syslog is turned on, and there we go, and that's all we need to do. The other protocol that we want to turn on, or services turned on, would be Ntp, or Network Time Protocol. And again, we're going to say turn this on. We're going to disable authentication. However, it is generally recommended that whenever you're using Ntp, you use some form of authentication. Here you can see the time that the server is currently running, and you can change that. And we're good to go here. Next, we're going to take a look at TFTP. Now, presently, TFTP, or your Trivial File Transfer Protocol, has stored on it the following files. And later on, we're going to be flashing some of these files, specifically the C2600 Advanced IP Services. Okay? All right. And we're going to turn TFTP on so that we can use that as well. So we've turned on our Syslog, we've turned on Ntp, and we've turned on TFTP on our server. And at this point, now we can go back to our router and we can start configuring it for these services. So let's minimize this. So now let's go over and configure our router. And we go in, again, enable, config T, get into our global configuration mode, and then I'm going to punch in our commands for Syslog, and here they are. So what we're doing is, the first command is logging host and the IP address of our server over here. So our server is 100.100, and that's what we have here. And then we specify the type of information that we want in the log entry, that we want a timestamp, that it's logged with a date and time, as well as the millisecond. Millisecond is very important because a lot can happen in a single second, so we want to track the millisecond as well. So we'll press enter on that, and that is now accepted. Alright, next we'll be taking a look at setting up our Ntp service. We're going to configure Ntp, and the command is simply Ntp server, and then specify the IP address of your Ntp server, which is our server over here. Okay, so it's 100.100, and it accepts that. The next thing we'll do is we'll do a do Ntp status, do show Ntp status, and now it gives you the status of Ntp up and running. From here you may also want to go do show Ntp Associations. So this is going to show you where Ntp is getting its updates, and as you can see down below here, it is getting those updates from 192, 168, 100.100. Alright, so that is for configuring our Ntp and Syslog. Next, I want to move on to working with TFTP, or Trivial File Transfer Protocol. Okay, so now let's go in and work with the TFTP protocol. We're on our router, and let's go into enabled or privileged mode. And the first thing I want to do is I want to save or back up my running configuration file to my TFTP server, which is my server right here, 192.168.100.100. To do that, I'm simply going to use the copy command in the privileged mode, and I'm going to say copy running TFTP. System is going to come back and it's going to ask me, okay, well, what's the IP address of your server? So again, 192.168.100.100. Press enter. It's now going to ask for the destination. Now, because you'll be saving the configuration files for potentially multiple servers and switches, I like to have a name that it's a little more descriptive. So we're going to say router 0, the device ID, if you will, dash running config. So that tells me it's the running config file. And then I'm going to put the date in there. So the year 19, then month 11, then the day 19. I'm going to press enter, and it has now written this file out to my server 0 at 192.168.100.100. Let's go into server 0. We'll select TFTP, and this is listed in alphabetical, so we'll go to the bottom of the list here, and let's see. That's strange, I'm not seeing it. Let's go back to our router and just check this name. So we entered in router 0, running config. Okay. So let's go back to the server and take another look and see if we can find this thing. And okay, here it is. It's at the top of the list rather than the bottom. Okay, so our running router 0 running config 1911.19. Okay, so I have now backed up my running config file. In the event that this router goes south for one reason or another, and I put in a replacement router with a similar configuration, I can use this running config and reload it into the router. And the easiest way to do that is to, again, with a copy command, only this time say running TFTP, and then specify running config, and this is where we're going to copy it to. Okay, the host or server 192.168.100.100. The file name is router 0 dash running config dash 1911.19, and destination is going to be the running config, so we'll confirm that and press enter, and there we go. It has now been copied back up. The last thing that I want to show you with TFTP is how to load a new operating system, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to use the copy TFTP, and then we're going to do flash, okay, which is where our iOS file is eventually going to be stored. So we're going to be installing a brand new iOS file into our router. So I enter that in, again, 192.168.100.100. It now wants to know what is the source file name, and what we want is we want this one right here. I'm going to deselect it, the C2600 Advanced IP Services file. Okay, and we are going to grab that, and let's see, I think I've already have that stuck in my clipboard. So I'm going to do a paste. There it is. Okay. Destination. And it now is writing or loading that file into our router. Okay.